Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Yeah, let's go. You ready for some more protests? You ready for some more riots? Because we're going to get them this Saturday. The only question is, where's it going to be? How bad is it going to be? And what's it going to take to stop these people from, escalating? Because, look, it's kind of been a tale of two worlds. Over here, where we live in red state America, cars don't catch fire. And places where the other team is in charge, cars catch fire. Buildings catch fire. Dumpsters catch fire. The Foot Lockers get looted. Apple stores get looted. And it's not that like a random, these guys that has nothing to do with the politics of it. They're just taking advantage of the situation to score a cell phone. No, they're writing F-ICE on the windows of the iPhone store before they loot it. So, that is the protesters. But I wanted to see, because I like you, I'm just curious, what's the mindset of these people? How do they have the exact same information available to them that you have, and they come to such just grand different conclusions? And so one thing I've been doing a lot more so this year than even in years past, and look, I'm almost 23 years into talk radio, so I'm taking an even deeper dive into that this time around. And what that means is I've gone around and I've searched up for all the social justice, woke protesting groups here in North Texas, and I've decided to follow all these accounts, and I've signed up for a whole bunch of email newsletters, and I go to their websites and I register with their their newsletters and their email list. And so I'm just getting fed a constant stream of Team Blue. And I don't want to call it propaganda, because I think some of these people, probably most of these people, are honest, well-intentioned folks who've just been misled by the people on TV. They want to make the world a better place, and this is what their professors told them, and this is what their favorite musicians told them, and this is what their favorite actors told them, and every show on Netflix has told them. So I get why young people are in this position. But I wanted to share with you, because I've been divorced from that for a long time. When I came out of college, I wasn't sure what the heck I was. And then when I started doing a little bit of digging, I started to sort of drift toward my tribal allegiances, and it's a lot like they stand today, that not a whole lot has changed in my worldview in the last, 20, 25 years. However, I just wanted to see if it was different. I wanted to see if it was kind of the same stuff you and I saw, like when we were in college and we were surrounded by people who were like this. And so I want to share with you some of the stuff that I've seen by going to their websites, downloading their apps, being on their email list, reading some of their materials, because I read a whole lot of preparatory materials for this Saturday. I'm signed up. I registered to be at the protest on Ackerd Street on Saturday. North Ackerd, there's a federal building in downtown Dallas, and I'm not going. My kids are in a talent show on Saturday, so, good luck, Parker kids. I'd rather hang out with them than these goobers and get called a fascist or whatever. But let me just share with you some of the things I've seen and noticed when you get into their literature and you get into their worldview. And I've just really tried to make a good faith effort to understand what animates these people. Like because the burning question you've had, no pun intended, is how can you set a car on fire and still think you're the good guy? How can you be the side that's looting stores? Like getting a whole lot of Air Force Ones at a Foot Locker, or getting some new Nike Dunks from a Champs Sporting Goods. That's not damning the man. That's not furthering your political cause. Why do you think like this? Why do you act like this? And so one of the first things you'll notice if you do the deep dive is they talk a lot about fascism. That is the animating narrative for the useful idiot. And if you're new to the show, I don't mean useful idiot as I'm just taking a shot at them. That's not a pejorative. I don't even mean it really as an insult. I'm just saying in communist lore and literature and history, they have this group of people they call the useful idiots. Because as socialists, if you go read, their actual base material and not just what they put out in flyers and websites and social media, the true believers know that they're only about 20% of the population. But they also recognize there's about 40% of the population that's not well-informed. They're never going to be well-informed. They don't care. They're watching sports. They're watching the Kardashians. They're doing dumb stuff. They're watching dumb people do dance routines or cinnamon challenges on TikTok. And they realize that they could control these people if they just seize the rhetorical industries and feed them a steady diet of propaganda. And the one that seems to work, the one that seems to stick, is they're fighting fascism. And once you can make people believe they're fighting fascism, then it's easy to get them to burn a car. You're not a bad guy. You're burning cars in support of taking down literally Hitler. And so there's three problems to that. Number one, I'm not a fascist. You're not a fascist. No one is a fascist. And I don't mean like there's not a fascist on planet Earth. I just mean what guy in Congress, Team Red or Team Blue, what guy in the state legislature, state senate, what governor, what mayor, what city councilman, if you put a microphone in front of his face and go, are you a fascist? Will they say yes? I think the answer is zero. So who are you fighting? They're just shadow boxing this invisible enemy, but they've created for themselves and they believe it. And one of the dangerous parts about that is their definition of fascism is wrong. I don't think they realize how close to fascism they are. And the third problem with that is even if there were fascists in positions of power, this isn't how you get rid of them. Torching a Toyota Camry or a Waymo self-driving car. It's not how you take down literally Hitler. This is not how fascist regimes are overturned. Chucking a brick through a window at an athlete's foot is not how you affect change. No, there's no fascists like, oh no, they got some free shoes, better pack it up. And also another thing I noticed is they make it a lifestyle thing. You know, we're fighting fascists. So come on the weekends, come hang out with some friends, stay hydrated. Here's some tips for making waterproof signs. You can decorate an umbrella to be actual fun. But it doesn't sound that much different than what we do over in Red State America. It sounds like we're about to go bass fishing for the weekend. Yeah, come on out. Hang out with friends, stay hydrated, have some waterproof signs. I doubt they decorate their umbrella. But I've really been trying to get behind it, and it all seems to hinge on this fascism point. We'll get back to that. Coming up next, you're going to hear local lawyer David Cole on the legality of a couple of things. Number one, troops in the National Guard, and his proposal to propose flag burning laws. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. I am your host, James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Now, before I get over my skis talking about some of these legal issues, let's bring in a constitutional law expert, David Cole. He's a partner to Dallas law firm Lynn Pinker, Hurst, and Schwegman. Welcome back, David Cole. It's been a while, but good time to talk to a constitutional law expert. All right, let's do the National Guard issue first. Some people are saying that that's illegal. Gavin Newsom saying he doesn't have the right to do that. Other people are saying he doesn't have the right to do that. On the other side, I hear he has the right to do that as long as they're not engaging in some sort of law enforcement activity or being used against the citizens, as long as they're just protecting ICE members or ICE agents and federal buildings. Is that a fair summary? So, what about posse comitatus and the Insurrection Act? These are the two that keep being brought up in this situation. How does that filter through your head, David? All right, we're talking with David Cole, constitutional expert from Lynn Pinker, Hurst, and Schwegman. The next constitutional issue that we're talking about today is Trump mentioned that he would like to make flag burning illegal. Now, I think most people agree that any flag being burned at any time, we shouldn't make that illegal. But are there some instances where it could be considered intimidation or some sort of domestic terror threat or maybe even a hate crime? I was trying to stretch and think when that would be constitutional, and violence or intimidation for political purposes or for an ideological purpose meets the definition of terrorism. So if you're burning a cross in someone's yard, that is an intimidation. Obviously, most people would consider that, if not unconstitutional, at least it should be illegal. Right. Is that what you do on the weekends, David? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Just trying to throw a little levity in there, but that's exactly what I'm getting at, David Cole. I guess there could be some instance where a flag burning charge or flag burning could be deemed illegal, but just the blanket idea of flag burning being illegal, I think most of us kind of bristle at that. Well, David Cole, could this be used? Are we comfortable, constitutionally speaking, with this being used as a predicate to deny someone student visa or immigration status? All right, David Cole, I appreciate your expertise here in constitutional issues. You can find him at the Dallas Law Firm with Lynn Pinker, Hurst, and Schwegman. Appreciate your time, sir. All right, good stuff. What do you think? Should it be illegal to burn the American flag? Should it be an aggravating factor, like a hate crime law? Like if you're committing another crime and you're burning a flag while doing that, could you double the penalties for it? Because you can do that if if you're shooting someone or stabbing someone and you use a certain slur that could aggravate the charges and have them be upped. We've seen that happen. Could we do the same thing for a flag? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I think there's some small instances here, but I don't know if I'm convinced on making it a hate crime. We'll talk about that next on The James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. So Donald Trump had mentioned the idea of making flag burning illegal 2 days ago, and the discussion, we need to have this now.
But they proudly carry the flags of other countries, but they don't carry the American flag. They only burn it. Did you see a lot of the flags being burned? They weren't being burned by people from our country or from people that love our country. People that burn the American flag should go to jail for 1 year. That's what they should be doing. 1 year. And we'll see if we can get that done. We're going to try and get that done. We're working with some of your senators.
All right, now allow me to have a little nuance here, and you should allow yourself to have a little nuance here, because on both sides of this debate, I see people who are just too reductive. They're too simplified in their response to this, because one side will say, no, burning a flag is protected speech. It's always protected speech. Nothing you can do about it ever. And then people on the other side will say, no, if you burn a flag, that should be illegal, period, point blank, end of story. Well, let's pick apart both of those. Okay, let's start with the idea that burning a flag at any time, always, should be illegal. Well, that's ridiculous, because don't they burn flags after they retire them from service? Like when you have a flag that's flying, it gets a little tattered, you bring it down, you put another one up. And there's all kinds of protocols that I don't know. I wasn't in the military. I wasn't even in the Boy Scouts. I know shockingly little about flag protocol. But there's a lot of people who take this very serious, and I respect their wishes with all that. And I think one of the ways that some people dispose of flags when they're done is to burn them. Isn't that part of the code? So, no, I don't think anyone is saying any flag at any time being burned should be illegal. I don't know. If someone does think that, you need to open up a little bit. You know, what if you have like a flag bumper sticker on your car and your car catches fire and that flag burns? Should you get a charge for that? No, of course not. That's silly. Okay, so what about like actual fabric flags? Should you be able to, if you own one of these, like if you own like a little tiny one that's like 3 inches by 4 inches, and you're out in your backyard, safe from the prying eyes of sensitive people, and you pull out your cigarette lighter and you burn that, should you go to jail for that? No, I don't think anyone, I don't think many people would think that that's a jailable offense or even a criminal offense. But then let's go to the other side. For you people who think anytime a flag's burned, it should be protected. Well, let's go ahead and start. What if you're trying to burn someone else's flag? Okay, well, that's an obvious no. Not all flag burning at all time should be legal. All right, and so let's start whittling away at that. Because once we get off of our little positions on the extreme end and realize we're going to have some sort of gray area solution in the middle, the flag burning debates are much like the larger free speech debates that we hear about yelling fire in a crowded theater. Because people will say you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, sometimes that's illegal. Sometimes you're inciting a riot or disrupting the public order or causing chaos. But what if there's actually a fire in a crowded theater? What if you accidentally, but with good intentions, perceive that there's a fire in a theater when there's not? So there's a little gray area there. This is a lot like that. So we can just come up with scenarios here. You heard me talking with David Cole in the last segment. If you take your own flag and you burn it on someone else's property, that could be illegal. What if, I don't know, what if there's a burn ban, or what if they don't have the insurance to cover that, property insurance, and they don't want anything to be burned? What if they see it as an act of intimidation? Like when Democrats in the Klan used to run around burning crosses in the yards, and that was an act of intimidation. Could you do that with the flag? What if it was on your own property and you wanted to scare your next door neighbor, so you just put it on the edge of the property line, but you were intending to intimidate them, to cause them to live in fear? So yeah, violence or intimidation for a political ideology, that's terrorism. That's the definition of terrorism. So what if, we were coming up with all these. What if one day, and maybe soon, maybe that's what they intend now, that what if it's intended to be an act of intimidation? What if these people are burning their own flags, either on public property or property where it's not forbidden, but they mean it to be, I'm going to show you, you should be scared of us. How is that different than burning a cross to intimidate your political or perceived ideological opponents? So I'm not 100% on either one of this. I can see scenarios where it should be legal and where it shouldn't be legal. And I want to know where you stand on this gray area. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Let's do Angie in North Carolina. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts on flag burning?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My thing is, I don't think it should be illegal because that'll open up a lot of other censorship that the government can get into. But I do think if you're here on a visa, you're an illegal, you're on a terror list, or anything like that, you should be held and put in jail because you aren't a citizen. You don't have the right to do that.
Well, I think you shouldn't be put in jail for it. I think if you're trying to get citizenship here, if you're a legal immigrant or you're on a visa or you're on a green card and you're kind of trying to prove that you deserve to be a citizen, I think this would be pretty good evidence that you're not one of the ideal citizens.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think it could be used to deport you or, deny your final citizenship status, but I don't think you should go to jail for that.
Well, I think it would depend. Like you said, people that do that, don't like America. So I'm sure they're up to something else.
Oh, I agree with that. All right, good stuff. Thank you, Angie. Let's go to Cheryl in Mineral Wells. Your thoughts on flag burning on WBAP?
I disagree with it 100% because I used to work for the police department down in Louisiana.
Okay.
And we used to put people in jail for putting holes in their flags. We arrested a guy.
I'm sorry, did you say holes?
Yeah, a hole. And there, he put a flag in the back in his back window of his truck.
Okay.
And of course, the flag has two holes in it for the to put your flag up. He tacked two holes in the back of his for the other side of his window. Well, the policeman went ahead and arrested him for putting two holes in his flag, and that was in his truck. I had to write up an ordinance for that. So it will go to court. And it passed. He got fined for it.
What year was this?
That was 1970. That was in the 70s and 80s.
So is that still illegal now? I could get in trouble for putting a push pin through a flag?
Idea. The laws have changed so much. Criminals have gotten rights now. I mean, they have gotten away with so much.
Well, that's a wild story, Cheryl.
Huh?
That's a wild story, Cheryl.
No, it's not wild. I mean, we arrested them for burning down there. I mean, it was bad. But back then, we had laws that were that we protected the victims. Now they protect the criminals.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And, and this is getting bad now. Now criminals have rights. The victims don't have no rights.
Who's the victim in the flag push pin situation?
Well, I don't have no idea. I'm not getting into that crap.
All right, great call. Thank you, Cheryl in Mineral Wells, I guess via Louisiana at some point. But your thoughts on flag burning? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Like, I don't think it should be illegal in all situations, but I do think it's a great litmus test so you can find out who the buttheads are. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So 2 days ago, Donald Trump said that he would like it to be illegal for these people to burn American flags. Now, he didn't go into detail, but I don't think Donald Trump meant anytime anyone burns a flag in any situation, it should be illegal.
But they proudly carry the flags of other countries, but they don't carry the American flag. They only burn it. Did you see a lot of the flags being burned? They weren't being burned by people from our country or from people that love our country. People that burn the American flag should go to jail for 1 year. That's what they should be doing. 1 year.
So let's put a little more nuance on it. Josh Hawley was saying if you burn the flag while committing other crimes, that it should be an aggravating factor. It should increase the penalties, much like hate crime laws do. If you kill somebody, you get a certain set of penalties, but if you kill someone while saying an ethnic slur, well, that makes it even illegaler. Maybe we should do flag laws like that?
We ought to penalize people who burn the American flag while they're committing a crime. If you do that, you ought to have your prison sentence doubled. It's time to get serious with these people. It's law and order time in America. No more of this nonsense.
So it's like an extra, 2 years if you burn a flag in the commission of a felony?
Absolutely. That's what I would do. If you want to go burn a flag while you're up there rioting, while you're assaulting cops, while you're blowing up cars, yeah, fine, go right ahead. Spend double the amount of time in prison. That flag means something to Americans. If you think that you can just burn it and get away with it, it's time that we disabuse them of that notion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm on board with that, but if we're going to have hate crime laws where people with a hateful motivation have an aggravating factor on their sentence, then we should be included too. Is it only if you hate anything but me or America? Is it only if you hate certain protected groups? Or are we just talking about all hate? Because under that scenario, hey, we already have hate crime laws. Why not hatred of America being one of the aggravating factors? That's an interesting discussion. 800-288-9227. Let's see what other people think here. This is Tracy and Kaufman. You're on WBAP.
Hey, appreciate taking my call. Was looking at something online a little bit ago, trying to do a little research, and apparently in numerous countries throughout the world, it is against the law to desecrate their flags. And funny enough, Mexico is one of those countries where it's illegal to burn their flag or to desecrate their flag at this point.
Oh, you get so much credit for looking that up. I should have done that. Yeah. Wow. Good point there, Tracy. It's illegal for a Mexican in Mexico to burn a Mexican flag, but if he can come to America and burn an American flag, that's cool. Doesn't that make us look like the nice guys? Like, where do you have your full complement of human rights?
Well, exactly. And, First Amendment, I'm all for First Amendment, but there are certain aspects. Of course, when you to destroy a flag, there's proper procedures, and burning them is one of them. But there's a ceremony that goes along with that to pay tribute to and honor the flag as you are destroying it. And just to burn one in the streets publicly, I don't see that that's a proper thing to do at all. And I wouldn't have a problem, some sort of law against it with whatever punishment seems fit.
Well, look, let's think about it like this way. Like when you take gun classes or whatever, they teach you, what assault is by the letter of the law. Now, assault isn't when you punch somebody. It could just be like, I'm going to shoot you. Now, if you have a gun that is in your hand and you're raising it to them while you're saying that's assault, whether you actually hit them or not, or fire the trigger or not. But you're making an actionable threat to at least intimidate these people. Now, if I just tell you, Tracy, I'm going to shoot you, that's not illegal because it's not actionable. I'm not in your presence. So you don't feel any sort of threat from that or loss of safety in that scenario. But if burning the flag is meant to be a tool of intimidation to scare people, then maybe we already have the legal framework under which that could be considered an act of intimidation, therefore illegal.
Yeah, at that point, then if you try to do it state by state, of course, that wouldn't work. It would have to come under some kind of federal jurisdiction. I happen to be in law enforcement for 40 years, so I'm used to what you're talking about on the weapon side of it. But when you're getting into an actual offense on something that you could pursue and prosecute state by state, of course, that would be next to impossible.
All right. Love the chat. Thank you very much, Tracy. Let's go to David in Fort Worth. You're next up on WBAP.
Hey, James. Yes, I with what Mr. Tracy said. There is a ceremony that goes along with burning their flag and disposing of it properly. If you're going to do it in defiance that you don't want to be here, you don't like America, well, leave. If not, take the punishment. I'm all about that.
What would the punishment be?
Little jail time. They're not going to pay a fine if you fine them. So a little bit of jail time.
How do you beat the free speech claims in court? What legal defense do you use against that?
Well, if you're burning it in the middle of a road, blocking traffic, normal everyday workloads for people, then yeah, you're in defiance and you're causing a problem.
Yeah, and it does technically meet a really low level definition of terrorism, violence or intimidation in furtherance of an ideology or political cause. And so if you're doing this to intimidate people or disrupt people or incite a riot, that's stuff that's already, we all agree that kind of stuff is illegal. So I'm glad we're having a grown-up conversation here, where in some instances you can burn the flag, but in other instances we should look at jail time or at least some sort of criminal charges. I appreciate that, David.
No problem, James.
Thank you, sir. Jason in Frisco, you're up next. Go.
Hi. This is going to be my ultimate libertarianism coming out, though, but it's a very much of a stretch to try to prosecute somebody for burning a flag. I do not agree with this, by the way. I would not associate with a flag burner. I think it's disgusting myself, but to try to prosecute somebody for burning a flag, it's freedom of speech as long as they're not hurting anybody. And I think it's a real stretch to try to classify it as a hate crime because it's a symbol of the country that they're burning, not a creed or religion or color of somebody's skin.
Well, I think America counts as its own creed. We have our Constitution with our set values that are enumerated. But what about burning crosses? Do you think that should be illegal or at least seen as intimidation or terrorism?
Now that is a hate crime because you are terrorizing somebody based on the color of their skin.
Okay, so by that metric, if they were terrorizing us based on our American heritage or our American citizenship or American, it's our creed. It's not necessarily our race or ethnicity, but it is our nationality and our creed. If they're doing that with the intent of intimidating or terrorizing us based on our American heritage, could that not also be a hate crime?
First of all, James, who's we? You talking about just anybody that's burning a flag, United States citizen or illegal alien, or who's we?
How about people who are protesting as part of a movement that's decidedly and overtly anti-American?
Okay, are they citizens or non-citizens?
Citizens.
Okay. If they're a non-citizen, I deport you.
Get the hell out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Citizen. I disagree with that other caller that was just on. I don't have to leave. And now I'm not burning a flag, but if I want to, and if it's my freedom of expression, and if I'm doing it in protest against the administration's policies, I don't have to leave.
Right.
I choose to burn this symbol. I'm not going to, obviously. I choose to burn the symbol of the administration of the country that I don't agree with. It's my choice. It's my freedom of expression to burn said object. I do not have to leave. I am a citizen. And
all right, I've just got to cut you off because I'm out of time. We're having a good chat, though. Thank you, Jason in Frisco. More great callers coming up. There's a line open, 800-288-9227. Is there any instance when it's okay to burn the flag? I say there's a few, but there's not a whole lot that makes me want to send people to jail, but there is some. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm James Parker on Newstalk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. If you're just joining us, I want you to pull your guard down, pull your walls down, be vulnerable here. We're having a discussion that requires nuance because the idea is being tossed around about penalizing burning the American flag. Now, you can't just come up with the easy answer. Yes, it should always be legal, or no, it should always be illegal. I don't think anyone can stand up to that. So where do you draw the line? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Personally, I think it is quite similar to the same free speech metaphor we use about yelling fire in a crowded theater. Now, some people will tell you you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, sometimes that's wrong. Sometimes you're doing it to incite a riot. Sometimes you're doing it with bad intentions to cause public harm or maybe reckless indifference to public harm. But sometimes there actually is fire in a crowded theater. Sometimes it is okay to say that. Or sometimes you accidentally think there is a fire and you think you're warning people, but you are wrong. So a lot of this depends on your intent. Now, if you're burning a flag after you've taken it down, retired it from service, and you're following the ceremony and the protocol, I don't think anyone has a problem with that. Even the most heartstrong veteran out there approves of that. However, you can take it the other direction. Is it always 100% okay to burn a flag? Oh, well, I think a lot of us can find instances where it's not. Number one, if it's not your flag. Number two, if you're somewhere you're not supposed to be or committing some other illegal act and you burn a flag, I'm okay with making it an aggravating factor. If you're doing it to specifically cause fear, violence, intimidation to someone based on your ideology, well, that meets a low-level definition of terrorism. So we're just having a little fun trying to draw the line somewhere in the gray area between always illegal and always legal. Where do you stand? Let's go to who's been here. God, you guys been waiting forever. Brendan and Lucas, you're next up on WBAP. Your thoughts on flag burning?
James, I wanted to further the previous caller Tracy's point about Mexico making it illegal. It's also illegal in Russia, and you can face up to 4 years of imprisonment from burning the Russian flag. So I think that it should also be illegal here, and I think 1 year of imprisonment is a perfectly fine and acceptable punishment.
Well, it has to be in certain scenarios, because I don't think you would agree that when a flag is retired from service and the Marines come and take it down and they fold it up and they burn it when it's done, that's not illegal. So when is it illegal?
When it's done in protest or done in public. I think privately burning the flag and retiring it from service, of course, there's no problem there.
Right. So I like this because your comparison, it fits in with a lot of other definitions that we've been using and I'm just going to repeat this because there's always new people joining us. In previous segments, we talked about how it's probably legal to burn a cross in your own yard if no one sees it, but if you put it in someone else's yard, burning a cross you're clearly trying to intimidate them and cause fear. And you're like, well, that's because it's on their property. All right, well, if you live next door and you put it on the edge of your front yard and you pointed it at them, same thing applies here. So if you're doing this as an act of intimidation, to intentionally instill fear, cause chaos, disrupt disturbing the peace.
Breach of the peace. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe if we go down that road, this stuff is already illegal. If you're burning a flag in front of a bunch of cops in order to tick them off, or in front of counter protesters, or in front of a veterans group, or in front of a veterans funeral, like the Westboro Baptist Church used to go protest those, maybe that's already illegal. Maybe we should start just acting on that.
Yeah, I think the only caveat and time that it should not be illegal is when you're retiring the flag from service.
Gotcha.
Anything else, I believe that you should be in prison for it. And by the way, I had a question for you. Why do you think that you should not be jailed for that?
Not be jailed for which part?
For burning a flag.
Well, for any time burning a flag, because then you get in the definition of what's a flag. There's also free speech concerns. If I'm not scaring anybody or intimidating anybody, it's a victimless crime, and I have a hard time believing in those. If I go buy a flag from the nearest Walmart and I take it to my garage and I set it on fire, no one should go to jail for that. If we get to a place where we're just having a flag burning and we're going to take the flags of all the countries and we're just going to burn them together, and it's dumb and it's silly and doesn't make any sense, but that doesn't feel criminal to me. You start to lose me when you're doing it to intimidate somebody and you mean it in like a hateful, provocative manner. You're trying to incite violence, trying to disturb the peace.
So do you think just like burning the cross, it should be applicable to the flag?
Yeah, if you go take a cross and you're in your garage and you have your own cross and you douse it in kerosene or whatever and you set fire to it, you're probably a piece of garbage or at least mentally questionable, but not illegal.
Okay, but you should also be equally punished if you burn a cross in public and burn a flag in public. It should be the same punishment. You're on board with that?
Well, we've got to get into scenarios here. If you're at like a Klan rally and you're burning your cross, no one is intimidated by that. No one is in fear because of that. In fact, they celebrate it. It's glorious. Maybe you're from a sect of Christian.
If you're in an Antifa rally burning a flag, I mean, technically none of the crowd would be feel threatened by that.
Well, if you're at an Antifa only rally, but if you're Antifa in a public street facing the public or facing the cops or facing counter protesters or in front of a Baptist church or anything like that, then we start to get into the hard maybes.
Okay. Yep, we're on the same page then. Thanks, James.
All right, man. Everyone's so adult today. I really appreciate that because it's not always that way with a talk radio crowd. Y'all are just really mature, I suppose. Coming up next on the James Show. Listen to this. How can a Mexican citizen wave the Mexican flag in America while simultaneously claiming it would be inhumane to send him to his home country of Mexico? You don't understand that thought process. I don't either. But the great author and comedian Evan Sayet can explain it coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. This is News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. We're talking about flag burning. Donald Trump had mentioned it a couple days ago. And as the discussion progresses along, it seems to be a lot of people are more on the idea of that if you're burning a flag in the middle of a riot, or if you're burning a flag while otherwise breaking the law, a lot of people have the duality of they're on board with free speech, First Amendment. You have the right to burn a flag if you want to, but not in the certain scenarios where you're doing it to, disturb the peace or as a threat or an intimidation. Much like burning the cross, I think that's a pretty good comparison because we all agree that was pretty heinous when the Klan and Democrats were doing that up until the 60s. But what do you think? 800-288-9227. What do you think about flag burning, Roy in Fort Worth?
Hey, first of all, I like your show. I was in the Air Force for 32 years, and I've had somebody in my family in the military since the War of 1812. And I fought for people's rights to do that. However, what you and the last caller were talking about, I'm on board with 100%. Now, the guy that called from outside of McKinney, Frisco, I guarantee you that guy never did 1 minute of service for this nation.
I'm sorry, which guy are we talking about?
I think 3 callers ago.
Don't say his name. What was his position?
He just was like, well, yeah, you can do it. You shouldn't do it, but yeah, you can do it. But I agree with you as far as certain situations, like, if you're an idiot in your backyard or whatever. But being in the military or being a police officer, firefighter, anybody that's served this nation with your life, you want to see somebody's blood boil, that's where it'll happen, But like you said, in certain situations, it should be legal. But in like what Holly was saying, that if you're doing something illegal, first of all, and then you burning the flag on top of that, we're going to put more candles and icing on your cake, and you get a nice longer vacation. So
yeah, and generally speaking, I disagree with the idea of hate crime laws. Like if you commit a robbery or an assault, a battery, or shooting, a murder, it's one sentence. But if you do it with the aggravating factor of saying an ethnic slur, then it gets escalated. Well, then is everyone else's hatred being escalated except for hatred against me, except for hatred against my principles in my country? We can't just have hate crime laws go one way. Are you against hate or are you not? And so that I like trying to rope the American flag in there because really I would like to see all hate crime laws go away. I despise the idea of making something illegaler because of the thought.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're a country of laws and order, but there's certain things that need to be adjusted here and there. I mean, and I've been to 43 countries, and this is the best gig on this planet, and people don't understand that, People have fought and died. I was a medic, so I've seen life and death, and when we put our life on the line for this nation, it shouldn't be disrespected like that, especially in a public area where, the protests and all that stuff's going on. So
well, and I also noticed you probably did too, Roy, and thank you for your service. That the flag burning only goes one way. You've seen American flags burned. You've seen the Israeli flag burn. Does the Tea Party ever get out there and they burn the Mexican flag, or is there any MAGA rallies where they burn the Mexican flag as sort of a protest against illegal immigration? No, it's a hateful, petty, just lame vandalism. And it only goes one way as well. I wonder why that is. Robert in Princeton, you're on WBAP. Go.
Hey, James. My question is, first of all, I'm against burning the flag. I want to reach through the TV screen and slap those people in L.A. for what they're doing. But the question is, to me, is, okay, if you see there's 5 or 6 people standing around that flag and spitting on it, and some are putting fuel on it, but they didn't light it. So do you put the penalty on the person that lit the flag, or do you put it on the people that are squirting a little extra fuel on the flag? I'm curious what your viewpoint would be on that.
Man, I don't know. I haven't put that level of nuance in it. I guess you would charge them all like you would like a bank robbery. Like the guy who actually grabbed the money bag gets charged and punished the same as the guy who's driving the getaway car. So maybe you just rope them all in together like that. But I don't have that same level of hatred for people burning the flag, because most of the ones I see are younger. And so I almost feel sorry for them. How terrible must it be if you're 19, 20, 21? You don't hate this country. You haven't lived enough. You don't have enough lived experience to know to hate the country. You've been taught that this country's bad. You've been taught to hate this country. This is what some adults around you have put in your head, because you certainly haven't been running around having your rights violated or seen all sorts of atrocities and concentration camps and violation of rights, and women are subjugated. I mean, we don't wear burqas over here. We don't wear the hijab. We have free speech. We have the Second Amendment. You have the best luck in the world. You have the full complement of human rights here in America versus any other country. And it almost breaks my heart that these young people have been trained to go to the greatest country the world has ever known and learn to hate it.
But it's that freedom to not burn or burn, I think, is what makes that even more passionate, right? Because if you're told you can't burn it and it's against the law, it just becomes an object versus the passion for, like, the gentleman that was just on, that fought. They're fighting for the flag and everything it stands for, and it becomes a part of you, I think.
Yeah, and I find that mindset quite fascinating. In fact, that's what we're going to talk about with my next guest. It's like, don't you realize what a great country it is that you have the right to go out and burn the flag of that country just in the middle of the street, blocking traffic, breaking all kinds of laws. You're put on the news, and half of the senators and House of Representatives and politicians will go support you and say nice things about you. Aren't you proving what a great free country this is by your act of burning the flag? How do they handle that cognitive dissonance? My guy Evan Sayet's going to explain it next. And also, like, the other one, like, how can you stand out in the street as a Mexican citizen, waving the Mexican flag in America, and then claim it's inhumane to send you to Mexico, your home? You don't have the explanation for that. I'm not nearly as good at it as my next guest, Evan Sayet. He's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. My next guest is one of my favorite guests because I'm going to throw 3, 4, 5, what seems to you and me to be impossible questions at him, and he's going to crush them like Dixie cups because this is his little parlor trick. This is what he does. I'm talking about the great Evan Sayet, and the backbone behind his answers here is going to be his own unified field theory of liberalism. It was spelled out in his book, Kindergarten to Eden. It's been expounded upon by a couple of subsequent books. Welcome back to the James Show, Evan.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure, James. Okay, go.
Yeah, like we haven't been doing this for years. So Evan's specialty here is explaining the doublethink that happens in the people's heads. Examples. How can someone claim this is a fascist country when they go out in the middle of the street at a protest and burn the flag? What fascist country tolerates the burning of their own flag? Aren't they disproving their point?
Well, indeed. You know, one of the arguments from the unified theory of liberalism is that leftist policies always happen in tandem. And at the same time that they attempt to elevate in esteem and stature all that is evil, failed, and wrong, for example, themselves as the fascists, they must elevate the evil they ascribe to their victims to the level of evil that they're championing. So they have to call us fascists. Let me give you another example. In the Middle East, they have to call the Israelis Nazis because they're defending Nazi-like behavior on behalf of the Palestinians. And so they must always elevate the evil they ascribe to their victims to exactly the level of evil that they themselves are engaging in.
But it still doesn't dawn on them. Oh, maybe I'm not in a fascist country. I just burned an American flag, and no one came and hit me over the head with the baton and put me in a re-education camp.
Well, by definition, if you are capable of saying how evil and horrible America is and doing so publicly out on the streets, doing it in the schools, teaching it in our schools, you know, you didn't get a lot of anti-Nazi education during the Nazi era. You didn't get a lot of anti-Stalinist education during the Stalinist era.
Right.
If we were, in fact, exactly what they said we were, they wouldn't be dominating the media. They wouldn't be dominating the education system. They wouldn't be dominating the entertainment industry. So simply the fact that they're able to not only get away with it, but thrive. I mean, this is how many of them make their livings. This is what they do for a living.
All right, let's do the opposite flag discussion here, because while they're burning the American flag, they're waving the Mexican flag or flags of other countries. So answer me this, Evan Sayet. Here's another impossible question. How can a Mexican citizen wave the Mexican flag in America while simultaneously claiming it would be inhumane to send him to his home country of Mexico?
Right. They came and they are granted sanctuary specifically because they are fleeing. They have no choice but to flee. This is why they can't take the time to go through the actual legal system, because they are under such immediate threat that we need to supersede the laws that we have to allow them in immediately, to give them sanctuary, and yet that's what they want to recreate here. You know, the idea is, amongst the people who support them, not just them, but the residents, the citizens in America who support them, is the idea that there is no difference between Mexico and the United States or any other cultures. So if Mexico owned California, then Mexico would be rich. The only reason we're rich is because we own their land. But in reality, if California were still Mexico, Disneyland would be in Arizona, and people would be digging out of California to get to Oregon. It's not simply that we have the land, it's the culture that they've escaped, and it's the culture that they seek to destroy here.
All right, we're talking with Evan Sayet. You can find his work at evansayet.com, or really just search it. Pops up on all the social media platforms. Here's another somewhat impossible question. I giggle at these guys who show up and they've got their little motorcycle helmets on and they're throwing rocks and bricks at cops. But the claim is these police, these are evil, racist, murderous monsters. They're literally the foot soldiers of Hitler, Evan. If they were so scary and murderous and violent, would you really chunk bricks at them?
No, indeed not. And one thing that they have is the benefit of getting back on their scooter and going back to their suburban neighborhood as they start all sorts of fires. This is what they did in Ferguson, Missouri. It wasn't black people marching and burning down Ferguson, Missouri. It was rich white liberals who were bussed in order to do this. And in fact, it's one of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. I found myself using this not only in my original book, The Kindergarten of Eden, but again in the book I'm writing now, which is one of the rules was it is up to us. And when he says us, he means rich, white, suburbanites, like the original radicals were, like the original 60s radicals were. It is up to us to go in and rub raw the sores of discontent. So they are intentionally falsifying history in order to anger the locals, so that the locals will burn down their own cities so they can burn down their own cities. And there's such a great story in the news, which is that a Hispanic gang, a Chicano gang in Compton, has declared their area, their territory, a non-riot zone. So it's actually the criminal Hispanic gang members who are standing up for law and order, and it's the rich white liberals in California who are trying to burn down the Hispanic communities.
All right, that's a big wow moment. Hang on, Evan said you got another segment. He's going to be with us again. I've got some more impossible questions, including you're going to hear someone who's in Congress right now say the ICE agents and the raids that they're doing is domestic terrorism. Enforcing our immigration laws is domestic terrorism. How do they come to that conclusion? Evan Sayed explains next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. The next James Show meetup is going to be a comedy show, actually. I'm opening for Alex Stein. You've heard of him. He's on the Blaze TV. You've seen him do his viral videos in front of city councils all over North Texas and now across the country here. He's doing a comedy show on the 29th. I'm one of the openers. So come on out. Hyenas in Dallas. It's a 7 p.m. show. Doors open at 6. Need more info, email me or find me on Facebook. We continue with Evan Sayet, though. You can find his work at evansayet.com. He's an author, satirist, comedian, and has the great parlor trick of answering just totally impossible questions. Now, Evan, I don't know if you heard my next setup, and even if you have, let me play it for the audience here. There's a House of Representatives rep from California, Sydney Kamlager. I don't know. I'd never heard of her until this week. She said the ICE raids are domestic terror. Let me play this for you and get your response.
What do you make of the fact that Americans do still seem to side with President Trump in terms of supporting his immigration policy?
So there are a lot of polls that are all over the place. I would argue that this is not an immigration policy that we're seeing unfold. This is domestic terrorism. Yes, actually last term there was a bipartisan piece of immigration reform legislation that Donald Trump asked Republicans to kill because he didn't want Biden to sign it. We know that Americans support immigration reform. We know that Democrats support immigration reform, but they do not support ICE raids like this happening.
Can I just
in communities?
follow up with
Sure.
you? You said this is domestic terrorism. Can you just tell me what exactly you mean? Are you saying the ICE raids are domestic terrorism?
So what I'm saying is when you have grandmothers taking young children to church or to the grocery store or to a little Korean market like the one that was in my district that was raided, and all of a sudden you see masked individuals with no identification, producing no judicial warrants that have names on it, asking no questions, snatching people, putting them in a van, carting them off, detaining them, not informing their parents or family members, not even allowing Congress members to go in and check and make sure that everything is okay, and then deporting them, you have a real problem. We have 9-year-old children being yes, I would argue that you are terrorizing communities.
There you go. Evan, say it. Your response to that. Enforcing the law, now domestic terrorism.
Well, indeed. And I hate to do the same trick twice because people get to see how you did it. But go back to my original talk on my unified theory. And the other side, no matter what, they have to elevate the evil they ascribe to the innocent to the level of evil that they themselves are defending. You know, by the way, that's not a totally novel idea. You know, accuse the other side of that which you yourself are doing. And that just is one of the rules for radicals. And so since they are quite literally domestic terrorists, there's no stretch of the English language required to recognize that the people that ICE are going after are, in fact, domestic or not even always domestic terrorists. They are international terrorists. That being said, in order to take the side of the terrorists, they must elevate the evil they ascribe to us to the level of the evil that they themselves are championing. You know, and by the way, this is all simply part of an overall program. Right now, they are defaming the police, but that's just part of defunding the police. It's all a part of their war on the police and law and order and authority, because if you are part of a revolution, the first thing you want is chaos, which is why you find that people who are disparate, very disparate in what they ultimately desire. The Islamists don't want the same world that the leftists want. Quite the opposite. They don't. The Palestinians don't want queers for Palestine. So how are they allied? They're allied in the first part of their revolution, which is to destroy what is.
Okay, so does the riots, does that help the cause or hurt the cause? Because I think at this point, they're more likely to be turning more people away from their side of the aisle than winning them over.
Oh, I think so as well. I think they've exhausted their hysteria, and hysteria is all that they've had. That's all they've had from the very beginning is that Trump is Hitler. And by the way, it wasn't just Trump. It went back to Reagan was Hitler, Nixon was Hitler, Giuliani was Hitler, Bush was Hitler. Everybody has been Hitler because all they have is hysteria. If you actually attempted to have a rational conversation with the political left, there is no issue that they can thoughtfully, rationally, historically, factually defend. You know, one of the most essential points that I make, and I make it in every one of my books, is that the political left never argues in the affirmative. They never tell you what it is they believe, why it is they believe it, where it has worked in the past, how it will work this time. Instead, they always argue in the negative. Everybody else is a Nazi, is a fascist, is a Hitler, is a racist, is a bigot, so you must vote for us by default. And even in the song, you know, Imagine, which is nothing other than woke ideology put to music, it's completely argued in the negative. Once you get rid of nations, once you get rid of national sovereignties, once you get rid of moral codes, once you get rid of property rights, then you will have a utopia. Well, how does utopia work? They don't say. They just say use your imagination. So once you get rid of the racists and the bigots and the homophobes and the xenophobes, then paradise will reign. So they always argue in the negative because they cannot affirm, and they can't argue in the affirmative because there's nothing for them to affirm.
All right. I love having you on the show. What can I promote for you? EvanSayIt.com. What else you got going on?
Just find me. Google me, find me, hire me, buy my books, make me rich.
All right, and if you want to see the original video that he was talking about that sort of kicked all this off, send me an email. I'll send you a link. It's like about 45 minutes. He was at the Heritage Foundation, and now it was, 18 years ago. And it will really explain a lot of what you see on TV, and then you can just go to step 2. Oh, now I know why they think what they think. That's not so weird. Now, step B. Coming up next, though, crazy story here locally. We have a guy who's being charged with murder because he slipped his girlfriend the abortion drug. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. You'll hear the bone-chilling story coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Oh, you may want to hold your applause, studio audience. You're not going to like this next story. This one's a little bit bothersome, and it happened in our own backyard. There's a couple of young adults from Parker County, and apparently they were getting along quite swimmingly. At one point they were. Well, it turns out the girl got pregnant. Now, they're not married. They're not engaged. They're not even really dating. And the girl wanted to keep it. The man didn't. The man said, look, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for you to go get an abortion. I don't want to get an abortion. Look, all we got to do is order these drugs online. I can just go online, order some drugs. I'll order them to me. I'll pay for it. I'll hand them to you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay for them. You don't have to do the delivery. You don't have to go online. I'll take care of all of it. I'll just give you the drug. She said, no, you don't understand. I want to keep the baby. It's not like that it's just an inconvenience or it's expensive. I don't want to have an abortion. So the young man says, all right, look, why don't you meet me for coffee? We'll talk about it. So they went to some place in Benbrook. When the girl gets there, the coffee's already on the table. She drinks the coffee, has a chat. It doesn't go very well, but she soon gets sick. She goes to the hospital. She loses the baby. The thought is, I was feeling just fine until I drank that coffee. Could there possibly be something in the coffee that caused this? Yes. We now have a North Texas man charged with capital murder for allegedly slipping the pro-abortion drug into his sort of girlfriend's coffee. Yikes. So this is all happening. He was arrested on Friday in Parker County. And then he was also charged by the Texas Rangers for murder. I don't know what the difference in jurisdictions overlapping there happens to be. But apparently secretly giving a pregnant woman an abortion-inducing drug is murder. Or allegedly whatever this is what he's being charged with. So this comes up with a few lines of debate here. Let walk through this with me because there's some interesting aspects to this. Because if she wanted to kill the baby, if she took the drug herself, would that still be murder? Well, in Texas, past a certain point, it would be. But let's just go ahead and go with the hypothetical that she's ahead of the deadline. Then would it be murder? What if she was in another state, like a California or something, that just loves abortion? You know, there's some places where all the way up until birth, she can elect to kill that baby whenever she wants, and it's not murder. So what's the difference here? Is it just murder because the mother didn't consent to taking the abortion drug? Did the consent or the lack of consent, is that what made it murder? Because if lack of a consent is what makes it murder, does it become murder when a woman takes an abortion drug against the will of the father? If consent is the deciding factor, does that not apply to all abortions that happen without the man's consent, or does the man's consent not matter? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. And so there's a lot of pro-choice people that listen to this show. I want to talk to you. Do you think this is murder? And if you do think this is murder, then why isn't a regular abortion murder? What is the difference if the dad doesn't want to consent? 800-288-9227. Now, I'm on a 30-second delay, but in 30 seconds, I'm not expecting the phones to ring a whole lot. Because people don't want to have that discussion. It's hard. It's not fun. But there's also, it's a logical catch-22. It's a trap. For sure. Because even if you are in favor of abortion, this probably rubs you the wrong way. You probably don't like the way this went down. You probably think, well, you can't force a woman to have an abortion. Oh, why not? Is that wrong? It's not like anybody died. It's not like it was a human. It was just a clump of cells. So how do the people in my audience who are pro-abortion, how do you feel about this story in your head? If you're pro-life, I already get it. Of course you think it's murder. You think all abortion's murder. You're not going to be any fun. Let me talk to the other side on this one. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. We'll hear some maybe caller responses if someone is brave enough to call in, which they might be, and I would be very, very appreciative and respectful because I see a little gray area here too, and we'll start drawing the boundaries on this coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, Newstalk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. The next James Show meet and greet is going to be a comedy show. I'm opening for Alex Stein. You may know him from the Blaze TV or some of the viral videos where he goes and raps in front of city councils and whatnot. And he's been on the show quite a few times, but I've been invited to open for him. And that's going to be at Hyenas June 29th. For more details, look it up on your phone. Right now, we're talking about a crazy story here in North Texas. A man is charged with murder, capital murder, for slipping his pregnant girlfriend an abortion-inducing drug. Now, he did it secretly. She didn't want to have an abortion. He did, and so he slipped her the drug. Now, I love having this discussion because for me, like, well, okay, this sounds like murder. But what about all those abortions that happen where the guy objects, but the woman has it anyway? That's cool with y'all? Y'all don't see any sort of cognitive dissonance there or double standard? 800-288-9227. Let's go to Greg in Waco. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts?
Well, you brought that into an interesting situation, and it's very valid. I guess my thought is he certainly assaulted her body, and in that assault, a life was taken, and depending on how the judge views the life of a fetus, I guess you could say that would be manslaughter at least. But he certainly assaulted the woman's body, so I guess it goes from there.
Yeah, I think the lawyers would actually call that battery too, assault and battery. But I don't know. Aggravated assault because there was a weapon used, like a fatal weapon, the abortion-inducing drug. See, this is where we need like a Nancy Grace or maybe a Jeremy Rosenthal to come on. But yeah, it's something. It's definitely something. Capital murder. I don't mind it being capital murder. What do you think? Does that bother you?
Well, your point about what if a man wants it and the wife doesn't, or the woman doesn't? That goes into a whole different. It puts it in a whole different league, and I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, look, a lot of people don't want to answer that question because that means there's a certain percentage, maybe even a majority of abortions that happen every year that should be called murder because they didn't get the husband's consent, or I'm sorry, I should say the father's consent. I love it. Thank you very much, Greg in Waco. This is Antoinette in Northeast Ohio. Are you there now?
Hello.
Yeah, you're in Northeast Ohio?
I am.
Okay, well, welcome to the James Show. What do you think about this, the guy who slipped his pregnant girlfriend the abortion drug?
Well, that's really sad that it comes down to that, people can't communicate. And that's the biggest problem right there. I mean, you can't force your will upon somebody else for any reason. And it's the same as if you do a date rape drug, that's just punishable. That should be punishable by law. I had a date rape drug one time. You go away for a second to get a drink, and then they put something in your thing, and to try to get with you. But anyway, long story short, yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know that it's going to be capital murder because it's really hard. It'll be interesting to see that if those charges will be followed through with or not. Number one, because it's a man that did it. I don't know in today's society if that still holds weight, but a lot of times it is still a man's world, But I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be probably something that will need to be addressed, maybe even by the Supreme Court until they have a thing. But like you were saying, should the woman then in turn have that when she didn't consult the father?
Yeah,
and
what do you think?
That's a really tricky thing because, a woman's body is now a woman's body, and what she does is what she does, So that
well, as someone in Northeast Ohio, I think I can explain the capital murder part because basically the abortion, almost all abortions are illegal in Texas at this point. And the charges for abortion don't go on the woman who had the abortion. It goes on the doctor who killed the fetus or killed the baby. And in this one, this is a guy who killed a baby, so he's going to be treated like a guy who killed a baby. So this isn't like an accidental abortion or an abortion that wasn't consented to.
No.
This was a murder that wasn't consented to in the eyes of Texas. So I think that's where that comes from. I'm sorry you got slipped the date rape drug. I have a shocking number of women who have told me similar stories, and I don't know if they've ever done the surveys. I feel like it's like 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 6 women have had something slipped to them. Not all of it, came to completion. A lot of them get caught before the guy takes them away. But that's such a scary story to hear. Thank you, Antoinette. So bothersome people do that. Doesn't that take the fun out of it? Jessica in Arlington, you're on WBAP. Jessica.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, turn your radio off. Talk on the phone. You're on the air.
Hi. Yes. Sorry. My name is Jessica. I'm calling from Arlington, Texas. I actually am pro-choice, but at the same time, I feel like you can't have it both ways.
Wow.
I think this boils down to a case of assault. Kind of like what she was saying, like he slipped her drug without her permission, right? Without her consent. That's assault. I don't necessarily think that's murder.
So if you assault somebody and they die, that's murder.
That's true.
Because he didn't assault her. He assaulted the human being that's inside of her in the eyes of the Texas law.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
So if it's not murder, is it manslaughter or just assault?
Mm-mm. No, because like I said, I'm pro-choice. I think that people should be able to choose. I've had an abortion myself, and it was the right choice. Me and my husband at the time sat down. We talked about it. It was the right choice for us at the time. But like she was saying, there's the lack of communication there is what broke that down. But at the same time, if you are pro-choice, you can't sit there and say that this is murder.
Well, I don't think it's a breakdown in communication. They communicated very well. She wanted to keep it. He didn't. He offered to pay for it, send her to another state to make it happen and all that. So what happens if the roles are reversed? What if the girl doesn't want to keep it, but the guy does? Is there no moral requirement for her to get consent from him?
I think that there should be. And like I said, if she wanted to keep it and he didn't, he should have just signed his rights away. Sign your complete rights away. You're not on the birth certificate. You have no financial or, at that point, any kind of obligation legally to the woman or the child. If you don't want to have anything to do with it, sign your rights away. If she decides that she wants to have a baby on her own, let her have a baby on her own.
Well, look, I'm glad that someone who deviates so far from the norm of the WBAP audience is part of the James Show. Thank you very much for listening and calling in, Jessica.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
All right. Bye. No more calls on this. I got to step aside because coming up next, we have a special guest. The Texas Land Commissioner, Dr. Dawn Buckingham, has a scary story where some of these rioters, these protesters, these anti-ICE people were targeting the Alamo, and we had to step in this week and do something about it. They're attacking the Alamo. Details coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Remember earlier in the week when you heard the National Guard was called not just to like California, but also in Texas? Texas, oh, what's going on there? Yeah, they sent some to San Antonio. Really? Not Houston, not Dallas, Fort Worth, not even crazy old weird Austin? No, the bulk of them went to San Antonio. Well, then when I found out why, I'm kind of livid. Saw the story on Dallas Express. This was in response for an event that happened yesterday where anti-ICE left-wing protesters staged an event called Retake the Alamo. Oh, hell no. No. You can go retake some random 5 blocks in Los Angeles. You can even go tear up some stuff in downtown Austin or whatever. But when you want to start talking about the Alamo, you're kind of hitting a sensitive spot here for every red-blooded Texan that's ever existed. My next guest did something about it. Dr. Don Buckingham, your Texas Land Commissioner, coming back on the James Show. They were really trying to take the Alamo. You know, they didn't think that maybe Texans would be a little sensitive if thousands of people of Mexican heritage waving the Mexican flag showed up at the Alamo. You know, it's kind of a sensitive topic.
Well, sensitive or not, they're not taking the Alamo ever. We're not going to give 1 inch. We'll defend it till the end of time. Those walls are going to stay standing. We had an amazing presence from Department of Public Safety, from the San Antonio Police. Want to give a huge shout out to our chief of the Alamo Rangers, Gerald Ramirez, who did an amazing job. They took so many steps in anticipation of problems. We went through the night relatively quietly. And but yeah, don't worry, we're up. We're defending the Alamo. It's not falling anytime soon.
So, what was their plan? Were they going to occupy the Alamo like they have occupied the administration buildings at Columbia or whatever?
Well, if you look at their patterns from the other cities that we've seen the protests in, where you've seen fires, you've seen bricks thrown through windows, you've seen all kinds of destructive forces, we were just not tolerating it. We just weren't going to have it. So we had a huge law enforcement presence. We had all kinds of drones in the air watching every inch of everyone's movement. We were quick to act. We took away any sources of potential fires or bricks that they could throw, or we fenced off a lot of the important statues that they might come after. So we did everything to defend the Alamo. We're going to continue to do so. That increased presence is going to be there through the weekend. We're not backing down.
Do they think this is going to help them in the court of public opinion? I mean, if you want to tick off Texans, mess with the Alamo.
Well, I tell you what, it was very, very interesting because, of course, we had all of our employees leave a little early so that they were out of the way of the protesters, and the police didn't have to worry about protecting employees as well as the building. We wanted them to focus on the physical structures. But what we noted was car after car after car coming in the garage were out-of-state license plates. They weren't Texas license plates. So it was predominantly New Mexico, but we got several calls from our employees back that just said, hey, why we're seeing just, out-of-state license plate pulling in to the garage, which kind of gives you this idea these people are here for trouble. They are not Texans, a lot of them who are leading these protests. We're seeing a lot of the instigators, same as we saw at the Antifa riots several years ago. So again, we're going to defend the Alamo. We're standing strong. We've had a really good strategic plan, and we're going to continue to do it.
All right, we're talking with Dr. Don Buckingham, Texas Land Commissioner. Now, I don't generally perceive the Texas Land Commissioner as an arm of law enforcement. What is your association with the Alamo?
Well, so technically we have ownership on behalf of the state of Texas. We have ownership of the Alamo. The Alamo Trust runs it. We actually were, not this past session, but the session before, we were given the ability to have a law enforcement arm. This last session, they decided that DPS should oversee it as a kind of an arm of DPS, kind of like they do the Capitol District, which I agree with. But that bill, of course, doesn't take effect for 2.5 years almost. So in that meantime, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll partner with all the law enforcement agencies. Really appreciate Department of Public Safety and, of course, Governor Abbott for getting them out and about and realizing that the Alamo is a priority. It is definitely a target, and we are going to protect it.
Well, Dr. Buckingham, sounds like you had a heads up on this one. In the pictures I saw from San Antonio last night, there was already phalanxes of cops in full gear right on the perimeter of the Alamo before the crowd even got there.
Yes. I mean, we were locked and loaded, ready to defend, arm in arm, hundreds of law enforcement officers tasked with that. Of course, there were also some storms that rolled through, and we had some pretty big flooding later into the evening, which was a bit of an adventure as well. So there's lots of things going on there. But again, the Alamo is going to stand. We will defend it till the end of time. We are not giving a millimeter to anyone. We're not tolerating any bad behavior. If you think you're coming for the Alamo, then you're getting a fight.
Well, I also saw, and this is rumors, I didn't see this in any news outlets, just floating through social media, that Texans, just regular civilians, started showing up with guns to sort of stand guard at the Alamo. Is that true? Did we see any of that?
It is. There's a group that were out there ready to defend, and they were the same group that came out several years ago. And, it always gets a little tricky when you have law enforcement and civilians.
Well, talk to me about who is this group?
I forget the name right now, but we really appreciate their intent and their dedication to the Alamo. But sometimes civilians get in the way of law enforcement when other civilians are trying to protest.
Well, that's cool.
That didn't happen yesterday, but it was cool to have them there. And we appreciate Texans standing strong.
Sorry to interrupt. I just I'm running out of time here. I saw guys. There was pictures that were floating around on X/Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days. These guys had what looked like AR-15s, and they looked like they were ready to go. And they weren't a problem. They were on the side of the Alamo.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Love that.
We definitely have groups that come out and defend the Alamo as well and are ready to stand strong.
Well, round of applause for those guys. Round of applause for the police, the DPS, the San Antonio police, everyone standing guard there. And thanks for keeping an eye on the Alamo for us. This is Dr. Don Buckingham, your Texas Land Commissioner. Don't give up a millimeter.
No, don't worry.
Because all we have to do is literally remember the Alamo. See what I did there?
100%.
Yeah, that's a bad joke. That's probably more like a dad joke. All right, coming up on the James Show, a couple of viral video jokes we're going to laugh at. Stick around, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hello, fellow homeowners here in Texas. We're not done with storms yet. It seems like they're never going to end. I mean, it's kind of nice. Usually by now it's like 128 degrees and we're all sunburnt to a lobster. And I don't mind the high being in the 80s. The problem is about 60% of us are going to get rain today. 35% of us are going to get rain tomorrow. And the more bad weather that happens to your house is the closer to the end of the lifespan of your roof. And if you've made it this far, consider yourself lucky. But if you look up and you see anything wrong, you see a board that's kind of rotting, you see some paint chipping, you see a shingle missing, you need to go to blueribbondfw.com. Schedule your free inspection now. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. That's what I did. I had one little suspicious board in my gables, and it's exactly what you hear on the radio. It's exactly what you see on the website. It's exactly what you read in the hundreds of 5-star Google reviews for Blue Ribbon Roofing. I was scheduled. The guy came out almost, 2 days later, comes on my roof. The whole process for me only took 40 minutes. I don't know if it'll be that fast for you. But for me, John Hopkins, the owner himself, got up there, took a bunch of pictures, and then ran through the options, left me with the folder full of materials with different kinds of shingles and styles, and I don't know anything about fashion or looks, a bunch of colors for me, and got to learn a little bit about the process. And then we just move forward from there. Now, if you need a whole new roof, they can also help you with the insurance process, because I know that's what you're scared of. It's not like you want a bad roof, a failing roof, a leaking roof. It's not like you don't want a new one. It's that you don't want to have to pay more than you absolutely have to. A lot of you are scared of trying to cover your deductible. Well, listen, the insurance company can be a pain, not always, but Blue Ribbon Roofing can help you with that too. The number that you call, to get the insurance process started for your roof is not the same number John Hopkins is going to call. John Tister, Trevor, I don't know who's going to call, but they've been dealing with insurance companies for 31 years. They know all the ins and outs, tips and tricks. And sometimes if you filed and you don't think you got enough money, they can go back and they can refile and get you made whole. So go to blueribbondfw.com. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I am your host, James Parker. Couple of notes here. Number one, the next James Show listener meetup is going to be at Hyenas in Dallas, June 29th. There's a comedy show. Alex Stein is headlining from The Blaze, or you've probably seen him scrolling through your social media feed where he does the rapping or singing in front of city councils when they do the public speeches. Well, he's doing a comedy show, and he's a friend of the show, and you may have heard him on previous episodes. But I'll be opening for him there, and then we'll be hanging out afterwards. If you need more details, look it up online. Don't be lazy. Also, I've been doing a deep dive into some of the groups around here in preparation for the protests that are coming up on Saturday. Now, they're styling these the No Kings protest because if, the fantasy isn't sticking about we're fighting against literally Hitler. Okay, now we're fighting against literally kings. Really? He's a king? That's what we're going with now? So they have this whole, it's a good chanting line, no kings, no kings. And if you see it, some of these other rallies and events, they've got some chants worked out. But it's been a fun deep dive going into some of the organizations that are just around here in the DFW area. You know, they have a No Kings for Dallas. They have an Indivisible that's for the DFW area. There's a 5051 that's also for the DFW area. There's all kinds of fun people, newsletters that you can sign up for, social media accounts that you can follow. And so I've been going through it. One thing I find is you got to give them credit where credit's due. Their politics are just off the charts batty. Their worldview is not really grounded at all. You know, you're not really fighting against the king. You're not really fighting against Hitler. None of us are fascists. No one's a fascist on the other side. But they are pretty good at music. I'll give them that. I'm going to play one of their little theme songs. They've made some songs to set some of these little action videos. They have highlights from rallies or upcoming rallies that are happening. And I like this song. This isn't a bad song. You'll hear one thing that's beeped out, and it's an MF. You know, the bad word that has an M and an F as the starting parts of the compound word. So that's what the big beep you hear is MFer.
There ain't no kings in the USA. You're not God, no matter what you say.
Well, I know I'm not
You
God.
break your word, you steal and lie, but you can't break us, no matter how you try. This land is ours, and we are free, from the desert sands to the shining sea.
Yeah, that's enough of that. That's not bad. Good voice, good harmonies. I know that there wasn't a whole lot musically going on. Just a little like acoustic kick drum. And then they sprung in a banjo at the end. You didn't expect to hear a banjo at the Woke Rally, did you? So their music's pretty good. I'll give them that. It kind of explains why so many of you, the music you like is made by people whose politics is just absolutely bat guano crazy. Another fun little piece of viral video that I want to run by you in this last segment is, okay, maybe you're not a Nazi, like you have the armband on with the swastika. Maybe you're not doing the salutes and you're not in the brown shirts. But if you're standing by during these ICE raids, that makes you a Nazi. Follow me.
I'm not calling you a Nazi, and I'm not calling you a slave owner. But if you're a bystander during these ICE raids, then that's exactly what you would have been doing during those times as well.
Really?
Did you think you would have been one of those who hid Anne Frank? Are you hiding your Mexican coworker? I'm not saying you would have been throwing rocks at Jesus, but are you standing between ICE and your neighbor? Because these are not normal deportations. The Nazis in Germany believed that the Jews are being deported. They were absolutely not. And in the same way, this administration is trying to do the same. So ask yourself, would you have been a slave owner? Would you have been a Nazi?
So this is why so many people have already gone past all of this just even bickering nuance and said, if you're calling me a Nazi, I'm declaring victory. So enforcing immigration laws now qualifies you as a Nazi. Not even enforcing the laws. If law enforcement bodies whose sole job it is, they only have one job, that is enforcing our immigration laws. If you don't go interfere with law enforcement officers executing their just duties, then you're a Nazi. Y'all don't feel like that's a bit of a stretch? Is that what Hitler did? Is that what fascists do? Do you just like anything you don't like becomes a Nazi? Because that's what it sounds like. And if that's the case, then it doesn't really mean anything, does it? All right. Well, you better go stop some ICE raids now or you're a Nazi. All right. You got it? I think that's the takeaway we're supposed to learn from here. Good Lord, people, calm down. You're not saving the world. You're not fighting literally Hitler. We're just enforcing the laws like every other country on planet Earth does. All right, Ranger fans, listen up. June 18th, that's this coming Wednesday, 6 days from now, Texas Rangers are going to take on the Kansas City Royals here at Globe Life Field. And if you're financially efficient, I don't want to say cheap. I want to say financially efficient like old Parker here. You're going to like the fact that it's Dollar Hot Dog Wednesday presented by Texas Chili Company. So here's where it gets even better. You want to win a family 4-pack of tickets? Text the word Rangers to the same phone number you used to call in, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. So check that out. You could win free tickets. You could go to the game on Wednesday, you and your family. You can get dollar hot dogs. I mean, we're pretty much setting you up for everything but parking here. So text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227. All right, when you go back out in the world, remember the James Show podcast is waiting on you. I've got some fun videos on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, all the social media. So go check out the James Show whenever you're getting some good alone phone time. I don't know. Maybe you're in the bathroom. Maybe you're in a traffic jam. Who knows? But remember me next time you're on social media and look me up. I'm James Parker. Mark Levin's next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.